ended? I mean, should that be the first
I
really
believe
option?
we
Because
do.
that's the first thing
I believe
they can do.
we do. What shape it takes and the details, is it going to be $500,000 for the $500,000 income earners and below, minus the top two brackets? I don't know. Or is it going to be permanent for the middle class and $250,000 earners and below, and maybe a 2-year extension on the top two tax brackets? I think that yet has to be worked out, but I think from Biden to Boehner to others, there have been plenty of signals even leading up before the election that had to be done, and there would be a compromise.
Let me read some more of the chat here, because some people are actually saying some very interesting things. Don Pontius, he says, this is not just about personal convictions. This is about representation of our desires. We are a republic. We are not being something. Okay. Eamon Escondido says government needs to get out and leave the private sector to do what they do. I think this is where the rubber meets the road, David and Paul, because this is the idea that the private sector can do what it does best, and the government needs to kind of stay out of it without the regulation. Now, I want you to comment on that first.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, in addition to healthcare, in addition to the economy, this election was about the role of government in our lives. It's too intrusive at this point. It's regulation, and we talked about the Bush tax cuts. That's just a portion of the economic road this president needs to lay out in order to be able to say, all right, businesses, now you know where your books are going to stand by the end of the year. This president and the Democratic Congress did not do that. They failed to act, and now businesses are hurting and people are getting laid off. That's why unemployment's as high as it is.
Okay, David.
Paul, I have to beg, because businesses are experiencing and seeing the greatest corporate profits today, and you can check that when we get off air on that.
Sure. How's that unemployment rate? How's that unemployment rate?
We're actually going to take a break right now.
And we also know that
David,
corporations depend on an environment set by government to advance their competitiveness.
And Obama failed at that.
Globally or
Obama failed. Yep.
We are just going to take a break right now. We'll be back with more of the Morning Click and more talk about politics and the election, the midterm elections. We'll be right back with more. David, the fact that these two races are so close, I mean, these two candidates were so close in the area of Washington, D.C., Washington State, rather, which is a very liberal state. What does that signal, though, as well, even though it doesn't really make a difference to the Senate makeup?
Lauren, may I answer that?
Certainly. That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, okay, good. What it says is a lot of money was poured in there as it looked like other races would come through, like West Virginia and the whole calculus. So money got steered back in there to close the gap. But I want to, for your audience of history buffs, political history buffs or whatever, I want to make a point, a historical point, to add to the history being made yesterday. And that is, for the first time in 80 years, when a party in the majority lost in the House, they also lost in the Senate. But this year, through the leadership of Senator and Chairman Menendez of the DSCC, that was defied. So for the first time in history, the Democratic Party, through the leadership of Senator Menendez, was able to retain the Senate, albeit when we lost the House. That, I thought, would be of interest to your audience, and is a tribute to the fight and what it takes. You never stop fighting until, the voter has the last word.
Oh, well, Paul, I'm going to give Paul the word on that one. What do you think?
Sure.
I mean, that's a very interesting point.
It is a very interesting point. No, that's absolutely true. And Bob Menendez had a lot of helpers, including a lot of the unions, AFSCME, he had SEIU, he had the AFL. So he had basically everyone to, help him out. They were the big money party this year, the Democrats. So anybody who says Republicans are the big money party, they're absolutely wrong about that. And I can't see any group that's gained more. Hold on one second, money. David. Hold on one second. I let you talk about Bob Menendez for 10 minutes. But, in all honesty, what we have now is this massive, union influx of dollars, and nobody has, been benefited more than this Citizens United case, from the Citizens United case than Democrats this year. I mean, they're the big money party.
I don't know. David,
that I'll differ with the money that came flowing from the Chamber of Commerce and undisclosed donors, I might add.
less than unions.
You know, well, you brought up a point before we went to William Lodge and before we went to the break, we were talking about the whole idea of the health care package. And one of the points I wanted to make, David, because I think this is a very interesting point about how health care will actually play out in the real world. One of the things that, I'm not quite sure which company it was, but it's a huge company. I'm not going to say it because I don't want to put that out there just in case it's not the company I'm thinking of. But there was an article written about the fact that because they had some 27,000 employees, and when they did the math, that if they actually did the penalty, paid the penalty for each employee for not making them have insurance, they actually came out better. They actually came out cheaper not providing the insurance that they already had been providing for their employees, rather than just pay the penalty for not having health insurance. These are the kinds of things that perhaps are going to be starting to play out in the real world. Not that they would do it, because there's an issue of, you know, sure you can, but should you? I mean, is this the moral thing to do?
I think you heard, it's a very good point, Lauren, and I think you heard that being alluded to by President Obama yesterday, and how there needed to maybe be some tweaking and some adjustments. And no one is saying that we don't look at that and we don't address as real life circumstances unfold, and it doesn't seem to be, or there are unintended consequences. We certainly want to address that, and I think Republicans and Democrats need to come together in so doing. But to be out there and saying we're going to repeal health care with all that went into setting up the framework to to bring health care to 30 million more people, which lowers costs, because if they go without health care and they find themselves in emergency rooms, those costs start to accrue to those that do afford or can afford health care. In addition to having pre-existing conditions and not being denied health care coverage, or covering 18 to 26-year-olds. All of that is good. Why throw that out? So I don't think you're going to see, you might see some tinkering and some adjustments, but I don't think the country is prepared to go through, as President Obama said, a whole relitigation of this.
Before Paul answers, I want to tell you another story, and I'm only telling this because I want to hear the answers when the healthcare starts playing out in the real world. I talked to a business owner here in New York just over the weekend, and he said, you know, it's interesting. You know, he has a textile company, and he provides insurance for his employees, and he asked that they just pay $7 a week for the insurance because he wanted them to participate. $7 meant nothing almost in the scheme of how much it was actually costing, but he wanted them to participate. And there was one employee's mother who didn't want her son to pay the $7 a week. And why? And her reason was that he could go to the emergency room and get treated for whatever he needed. He didn't need insurance. And I'm wondering if, you know, this is just one example. I mean, I'm sure there are other businesses out there that can almost give you some similar ideas. But when I say, let's see what it plays out in the real world, there are people like that who don't understand that $7 for healthcare is really amazing. I mean, comment on that.
Paul,
is that you want?
I mean, is that something that, you know, is out there in terms of, do we understand this healthcare playing out in the real world? That the insurance that was already in place was even there, but that someone wanted and opted out of it.
Yeah. From what I gather from your question, which is a very good one, and you know, that's why you have the legislators, you know, looking at these things from year to year, and as these real circumstances emerge, you're going to get adjustments. There are going to be adjustments on tax credits that have already been laid out to make healthcare affordable for small businesses to extend to their employees. So, you know, there is the macro, and as it, you know, layers over the real circumstances, you're going to find that it needs to adjust, and no one's denying that adjustments need to be made, but at least there is the overall framework as it stands.
All right, thanks so much, David.
Well,
my pleasure.
Can I? Well, because I think this is pretty obvious. I mean, what we have here is yet another liberal grand design, and they say, well, we're going to put it out there and see what happens. This happened with the Wall Street bill. Senator Dodd said, yeah, we'll put it out there. We'll have to wait and see what happens. Nancy Pelosi said, we'll vote on it to find out what's in it. That's their bottom line. It's just that it's, oh yeah, we'll figure it out later.
Well, we're going to be figuring it out for a long time. David, I want to
We'll
thank you.
And one day, yeah.
David,
I'm
thank
sorry.
you very much. The talk, it always goes on. Next time we'll take it up
Yeah.
again. Thanks so much, David Mercer, out in D.C., and Paul Westcott here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lauren.